$1? A cold laugh erupted across the family meeting room. Amara Johnson stood frozen, blood rushing to her face. Amid the gold rings, elegant dresses, and scornful smiles of her relatives, she received a single, worn silver coin, etched with two faded initials, EJ. The single mother, once a promising architecture student who never finished, was now branded the family's failure. And when the court granted custody of her children to her wealthy ex-husband, Amara's world collapsed entirely. But no one in that room knew that dollar wasn't a joke. It was the key to a secret that could transform Amara's life and even the future of the children she desperately longed to protect. So, what lay hidden behind a legacy that seemed worthless? The first sound was the faint clink of glass, like a cold musical note. The law office's conference room in downtown Atlanta gleamed under bright lights. The glossy wooden surface reflected gold rings and silver wristwatches. At the far end of the table, Amara Johnson sat rigid, like someone trying to keep a small boat steady in a raging storm. In her hand, a tissue was rolled tight, like an anchor line. The family lawyer read slowly, names ringing out in order, assets transferred like heavy crates hoisted onto a dock, commercial real estate in Midtown, a vacation estate in Blue Ridge, shares in a clean energy fund, investment accounts. Smug murmurs filled the air, a few tilted smiles. Then a pause, thin as a blade. Amara Johnson, $1. Laughter broke out, first a stifled snort, then spreading into a brittle, shattering sound. A silver coin rolled into her palm, not a shiny new one, but an old commemorative piece, its serrated edge worn, inscribed with two initials, EJ. The room felt suffocating. Blood pounded in her ears, heat burned her neck. Eyes glanced her way, skimming over her like a streak of paint that didn't match the palette. No one remembered or pretended not to that she'd once been a brilliant architecture student until a summer of survival forced her to quit. No one mentioned the long nights working shifts at a 24-hour diner, the mornings rushing her kids to school before returning to a cramped apartment where an old air conditioner wheezed like a sick animal. The lawyer closed the file. Chairs scraped, heels clacked on the wooden floor. Amara stood a beat too late, as if weighed down by the tiny coin. As she passed, a few relatives patted her shoulder with hollow, polite gestures. At the glass door, she caught her reflection. Hair neatly coiled, a green dress ironed flat with a cheap iron, her only pair of heels left after winters of selling possessions. Outside, the May wind swept through the street, carrying the scent of rain and exhaust. She clutched the coin in her palm, its cold metal like a mocking answer to every effort. The next day, Amara arrived at the Fulton County Courthouse an hour early. The long hallway, lit by fluorescent lights, made everything pale. She sat on a wooden bench, back straight, eyes counting her breaths. Malik arrived later, his suit tailored, tie a deep green, his face calm with the confidence of someone who'd memorized his lawyer's script. He paused briefly, nodding to her. Between them stretched the distance of 2 years divorced, of arguments sealed shut by silence for the sake of their children. Courtroom 4 had a high ceiling, the state flag neatly hung behind the judge's bench. The air smelled of wood polish and fresh paper. Amara rested her hands on her lap, feeling the coin press lightly through the fabric, a small, inexplicable anchor she didn't know why she'd brought. The judge entered. Familiar legal phrases fell, like paving stones. Files were opened. The evaluator's report read aloud. Stability, financial security, a sustainable environment for minors. Each phrase was a milestone missed. On one side, Malik's lawyer presented numbers, flexible work schedules, a suburban house with rooms for each child, private school tuition, prepaid. On Amara's side, her public defender offered evidence of effort, applications for assistant manager jobs, night classes for an associate's degree, a flawless record of visitation schedules. But those efforts, under the white lights, felt like marginal notes in a song whose melody the listeners had already chosen. The ruling came without a raised voice. Custody awarded to Malik. Amara granted visitation every other week and 1 dinner per week. 6 days a month countable on 2 hands. In that moment, the room seemed drained of air. She didn't cry. Tears had no place here. Only the scratch of a pen, the rustle of paper, the push of chairs. Outside on the courthouse steps, clouds had gathered. The wide stone steps made each footfall heavier. Amara sat on the lowest step, eyes fixed on the tiled pavement, its tiny scratches like a map of thousands of stories that had passed through. In her pocket, the coin lay cold and stubborn. She gripped it tightly, its serrated edge digging into her skin, as if physical pain could fill the larger void in her chest. The day slid into afternoon. She returned to her shift at the diner on Memorial Drive, its red neon open sign flickering like tired eyelids. The familiar sounds of sizzling pans, chopping knives, and rushed orders pulsed like the city's heartbeat. Amara worked mechanically, pouring coffee, wiping counters, checking receipts. Each frothy latte earned a few coins in tips. Each tip, a small step, though no one knew how long the road stretched. During a short break, she leaned against the back door, the brick wall damp with rain's scent. The city's noise faded into the distance. She opened her hand. The silver coin lay there, glinting faintly under a maintenance light. Its edge bore the initials E.J. Elias Johnson, her grandfather, who'd lived silently among loud people. She remembered summer afternoons in East Point as a child, him laying out paper and pencils, listening as she meticulously sketched her dream city. Small houses with gardens, tree-lined walkways, a lake with a tiny turbine she crafted from cardboard. He didn't laugh. He asked for details. He took her to the library, pointing out books on green architecture. Then time pulled them apart, as it always does in families with more secrets than dinners. Her phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name she didn't expect. Graham Pierce. She let it ring once. On the second, she answered. His voice was low, restrained, like someone who'd told too many important stories. He didn't apologize for the coin. He said briefly that the inheritance isn't over, that the coin is worth more than it seems, that tomorrow morning, this can't wait any longer. After the call, the city hummed as usual, but beneath the noise, something shifted like soft earth. Amara slipped the phone into her apron pocket, returned to the counter, and stacked plates on her arm. The familiar motions calmed her thoughts, but they couldn't erase the strange feeling growing in her chest. A humiliation freshly named had been nudged off course by a single, brief sentence. Late at night, she returned to her two-room apartment, where a visitation calendar hung on the wall, its squares marked in blue marker. She set the coin on the table, staring at it for a long time. The kitchen light glinted off its etched edge, like a thin silver thread. Somewhere, the memory of her dream city sketches surfaced, like grass after rain. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping evenly on the tin roof, a steady, small rhythm. Amara drew the curtains, turned off the light, and lay down without sleeping. The rain mingled with distant car sounds, forming a strange, unnameable melody. Before her eyelids grew heavy, she thought of the courthouse steps, her empty hands, 6 days a month. Then the call. This can't wait any longer. Tomorrow morning she'd meet the man who'd placed the coin in her hand. And perhaps, just perhaps, $1 wasn't the end. The coin on the table caught the light again. On its EJ etched edge, Amara suddenly noticed a series of markings so tiny they seemed like scratches, but they weren't. She reached for her son's old magnifying glass. The symbols were arranged with purpose. Dear audience, pause for a moment to subscribe to the channel before continuing with the main story, but only if you truly connect with what I'm sharing here. Drop a comment below to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. It's amazing to see people from all over joining us. The next morning, Atlanta was bathed in milky light, the night's rain lingering on the sidewalks, reflecting like countless shattered mirrors. Amara stepped out of her apartment, clutching the silver coin tightly. Her heart beat in quick, urgent pulses, torn between anticipation and the weight of something heavy. Graham Pierce's call echoed in her mind. This can't wait any longer. Graham's law office was on the 15th floor of a glass building, its hallway lined with muted brown carpet, soft golden light, lending an air of both elegance and melancholy. Graham stood waiting, tall and lean, his gray hair neatly combed. He didn't start with a greeting, but with a glance at the coin in Amara's hand. Have you seen the outer edge yet? He asked, his voice low, direct. Amara nodded, opening her palm. The silver coin gleamed dully under the light, Its edge bore strange, deliberate markings. Graham handed her a folded map, its edges worn. He spread it across the glossy wooden table. Elias Johnson, your grandfather didn't just leave a memory. He left a place, and this coin is the key. Graham's finger traced the map, stopping at a plot of land 2 hours south of Atlanta, bordered by pine ridges and sprawling meadows. A small circle was marked with a symbol matching the coin's etching. Amara fell silent. The map was like a mirror, opening another compartment of memory. Childhood afternoons on her grandfather's porch, listening to him talk of a safe place, where a community is built so no one is left behind. Back then, she thought it was just an old man's naive dream. You can choose not to go, Graham said, his eyes steady. But if Elias entrusted this to you, he saw in you what the family refused to see. Amara gripped the coin, its serrated edge pressing into her skin. For the first time in years, she glimpsed a path beyond mounting debts and cold visitation schedules. All right, dear audience, if you're watching and finding this story compelling, comment 1 or I'm still here to keep listening. Late that afternoon, she drove her old car, following the map's directions, leaving behind the city's high-rises and noisy highways. The winding road led into rural Georgia, past fields of white cotton, small roadside churches with faded wooden signs. The sun sank low, casting a pale gold glow over ancient oak trees. Finally, a rough wooden sign appeared, Haven's Crest. The letters faded but firm. A wooden gate stood open, a red dirt road stretching into a valley. The air was still, broken only by the flutter of birds from the bushes. Amara stopped the car. Before her, a community emerged. Small houses with green tin roofs, covered in solar panels, sprawling vegetable gardens, people working the fields with tools unlike any she'd seen solar-powered, designed with a futuristic ingenuity. A woman with curly hair, dark skin, and a tall, lean frame in a work jacket stepped out from a porch. She offered a warm smile. Amara, we've been waiting for you. She introduced herself as Miriam Clay, a doctor who'd spent a decade working in impoverished African regions before returning to America to rebuild the meaning of community. Beside her was Jonah Rez, a former military engineer with a metal prosthetic leg and eyes burning with conviction. Amara stepped into Haven's Crest, her feet feeling the solid earth, her ears catching the laughter of children running along a fence. The smell of food wafted from a communal kitchen, a rich mix of beans, spices, and cornbread. It all felt so foreign to the rushed world she'd left behind. Miriam led her to a large wooden house at the center. On a table, a thick envelope sat neatly. Amara recognized her grandfather's handwriting. Careful, resolute. Amara, the letter began. If you're reading this, the family has made you feel small, but you're not small. You're the only one who understood that true value lies not in mansions, but in how we build homes for each other. Haven's Crest is my dream, and now it's yours. Tears welled in Amara's eyes, not from shame, but from realization. Her grandfather had never abandoned her. That $1 coin wasn't a joke. It was an invitation to a world built from her childhood dreams. Outside, a gentle breeze stirred a green flag, bearing a circle enclosing 2 clasped hands. The symbol seared into Amara's eyes. In that moment, she knew. The humiliation of the courtroom and the will reading room was no longer an end, but the opening of a new chapter. The moon rose high, casting a cold silver glow over Haven's Crest's blue-green roofs. Amara couldn't sleep. Her grandfather's letter lay on the table, its ink seeming to radiate warmth. She stepped onto the porch, breathing in the heavy scent of damp earth and fresh wood. The quiet was so deep, each insect's hum lingered in the night. But the stillness didn't last. From a distance, a car engine rumbled, alien in a place accustomed to wind and crickets. A sleek black SUV rolled in, its headlights slicing through the fog. Amara glimpsed Miriam and Jonah appear in the yard, alert like hunting birds. The car door opened. Out stepped Victor Johnson, Amara's cousin, the one who'd sat smugly at the will reading, now in a light gray suit, red tie, and a sharp, cold smile. Cousin, he drawled, as if Amara were mere entertainment. Didn't expect you to find this place. Old man Elias sure knew how to play games. Amara stood tall, hand gripping the coin in her pocket. What are you doing here? Victor smirked, his eyes scanning Haven's crest. The small houses, the gardens still lit. Pretty. Just the kind of social project that loves front-page headlines. But you know, this land's worth more than that. There's lithium under it, and my corporation is ready to mine. Jonah stepped forward, voice icy. We're not selling. This land is protected by a trust. Victor didn't glance at him, eyes locked on Amara. I'm not talking to a crippled veteran. I'm talking to the heir. Amara, I'll give you $5 million cash, right now. No more bills, no more waitressing, no more crying in court to get your kids. You can start over anywhere. Amara's heart pounded. $5 million. Enough to clear every debt? Hire the best lawyer? Raise her kids to adulthood? A whirlwind of questions spun. If I take it, could I win back custody? If I refuse, am I gambling everything on this strange community? But then she remembered Sauron's eyes when he hugged her after the court ruling. Elowin's choke sob. I want to stay with Mom. $5 million couldn't buy what they needed. A true home, not just four walls. Amara took a deep breath, eyes locked on Victor. No, my grandfather didn't leave me money. He left me responsibility. And I won't sell Haven's Crest no matter how many zeros you add. Victor's smile flickered, replaced by a cold edge. He stepped closer, voice low. You're making a mistake, Amara. This place won't last long. When the next big rain comes, when your systems fail, who will save you? A bunch of dreamers calling themselves a community? Miriam stepped forward, eyes blazing with unyielding fire. We're not afraid of rain, Victor, but we know to fear those who only dig and destroy. You should fear the law. Victor paused, his gaze like a blade cutting through each of them. Then he let out a short, icy laugh. Fine, I'll let you play your happy family game, but when the time comes, don't say I didn't warn you. He turned, stepped into the SUV. The engine roared, swallowing the night, leaving red dust swirling in the moonlight. Amara stood in the yard, hand clutching the coin until it hurt. Inside, fear sparked, but so did a new resolve. She knew Victor wouldn't stop. This fight wasn't just about land. It was about honor, family, and a legacy her grandfather had entrusted to her. But before she could breathe easy, rain began to fall heavily that night, heralding the first great storm Haven's Crest would face, and it was far from natural. The wind howled through the trees, lashing rain like whips across Haven's Crest. Lightning tore the sky, illuminating the trembling small houses in nature's fury. But Amara knew this wasn't just nature. This storm carried the scent of human hands. In the hydroelectric dam's control room, Jonah frowned at a blinking red screen. The floodgates aren't responding. His voice was hoarse, drowned by thunder. Last check, they worked perfectly. Someone tampered with them. Miriam stood beside him, eyes like fire. Victor. She named the one they all suspected. Amara clenched her fists, the coin in her pocket burning. If the dam breaks, the whole valley will be swept away, Jonah cut in. Houses, gardens, our kids. No more words were needed. Amara grabbed a raincoat, following Jonah into the torrential downpour. The muddy road swallowed each step, sludge clinging to their shoes. The roar of water from upstream growled like a crazed beast. They reached the auxiliary floodgate west of the dam, a massive steel wheel valve, jammed by an unfamiliar iron bar. Jonah roared, "This is sabotage!" He and Amara worked to free it, hands numb from cold and the water's force. They threw their weight into turning the wheel. The rusted steel screeched, inching forward. Then boom! The gate burst open, water gushing like a waterfall, tearing through the rain. The water level began to drop, but Jonah's frown deepened. He held up a waterproof tablet, voice tight. Pressure's shifting to the western embankment. It won't hold long. Amara didn't think she acted. She grabbed the emergency radio, her voice ringing like a command. Attention all Haven's Crest residents. Evacuate immediately. Move to the high ground east. This is an emergency. Sirens wailed through the valley, blending with the storm's roar. Flashlights flickered in clusters, shadows hurrying through mud. Miriam led the evacuation, holding a checklist shouting, "Roll call, leave no one behind." But 3 families were missing. Among them, the Chen's parents and little Maya, who often played with Elowin. We have to find them, Amara said, eyes blazing in the dark. Jonah shook his head. Too dangerous. More dangerous than letting them drown? Amara shot back, her eyes flashing with a strength she didn't know she had. Zuri, an environmental journalist, appeared with a drone fitted with an infrared camera. I can help. The drone will pick up heat signatures. The tablet screen showed faint red dots in an old warehouse half a mile from Haven. They're there, Zuri confirmed. Amara didn't hesitate. She, Jonah, and Zuri plunged into the rain. The flooded road rose to their waists in places, sweeping away branches and stones. At the warehouse, Amara pounded the door, her shouts drowning the wind. Open up, we have to go now. The Chen family was frantic, still trying to save belongings. But as they hesitated, a deafening crack rang out, the window frame shattered, and a torrent of water flooded the ground floor. Amara didn't think. She grabbed Maya, hoisting the girl onto her back, tying a rope around them. Hold on tight. They waded against the raging current, each step heavy, mud slick as oil. Zuri led with a flashlight. Jonah supported Maya's parents. Water rose to their chests, freezing, but Amara held the sobbing child tightly. 40 minutes later, they reached the high ground where Haven's community gathered in the rain. Cheers erupted when they saw them. Maya clung to Amara's neck, whispering, "You saved us." Amara looked up, gasping, her body trembling. Above, the sky still roared, but in her heart, a fire had ignited. This wasn't just about custody anymore. This was about protecting a new family, Haven's crest. But as dawn broke and the rain stopped, a grim truth emerged. The western embankment had cracked, and the sabotage evidence on the rusted steel left no doubt. The enemy had struck, and they'd return. Dawn crept through the clouds. Morning light fell over Haven's crest, exposing the storm's wounds. Flooded gardens, eroded dirt paths, broken wooden planks strewn along the banks. But amid the chaos, the community stood firm. Adults cleared mud, children passed buckets of water, hands working in silent unity. Amara stood on a slope, eyes sweeping the scene. Her body was exhausted, but her heart pulsed with life. In every face, she saw trust. They didn't need promises, they needed someone to stand with them when darkness came. And she had. Jonah approached, boots caked in mud, holding a bent steel bar. He set it before Amara. "We found this at the floodgate," he said, voice rough. "It's not part of the original system. Someone deliberately jammed the valve." Amara bent down. Etched on the steel was a raised serial. Pteridine Minerals, Serial 7X4. She swallowed hard. The evidence lay there, cold and undeniable. Miriam frowned. Victor, Zuri, the journalist, snapped photos from multiple angles. "We need every detail documented. If this goes public, it's not just sabotage, it's a crime." Amara felt the coin in her pocket, cool as a reminder. Her grandfather had known this day would come. He'd left Haven's crest not just as a refuge, but as a battle line. That afternoon, the community held an emergency meeting in the communal hall. On the large wooden table, evidence was neatly arranged. The steel bar, photos, Jonah's report. The air carried the thick scent of black coffee, mixed with the patter of rain on the porch. Amara stood, her voice clear despite red-rimmed eyes from sleeplessness. "Last night, we survived. But this wasn't a natural storm. Someone wants Haven's crest gone, and we know who." Murmurs rippled through the room. An elderly man whispered, "If we fight Pteridine, they'll crush us." Amara scanned the faces, anxious, angry, hopeful. They have money, but we have the truth. And that truth, brought to light, is stronger than any amount of money. Miriam placed a hand on her shoulder, eyes stern but steady. Amara's right. We're not just protecting this land, we're protecting a legacy. Zuri stepped forward, holding up a small silver USB. "It's not just the steel. I found a data drive in Elias's old archives. It holds Pteridine's mining maps for 20 years and the pollution cases they buried." The room fell silent, as if the air had been sucked out. Jonah let out a low whistle, eyes fixed on the USB. Amara felt a chill down her spine, but also a spark. She understood. Her grandfather had left her two weapons, a strong community and evidence to shatter lies. Night fell, and as others returned home, Amara sat alone. On the table, the silver coin glinted under an oil lamp. Beside it, the USB from Elias. Two small objects, but heavy enough to shift fates. Outside, the night wind rustled the trees. Amara closed her eyes, hearing her grandfather's voice in memory. A legacy isn't in wealth, but in what we choose to protect. She opened her eyes, hands gripping both objects. Resolve surged. The battle with Victor and Pterodine had just begun, and Amara knew she wouldn't step back. But as she stood, the wooden door swung open. A stranger appeared, soaked from the rain, eyes wild with panic. He gasped. "They found me. Pterodine won't stop. They're planning something even bigger." Dear audience, are you still here? Take a moment to relax, maybe grab a glass of water, and keep listening to this gripping story. Comment 1 if you find it compelling. Don't forget to subscribe. The stranger trembled, rainwater streaming down his face. He introduced himself briefly as Caleb, a former Pterodine engineer. His voice was hoarse, as if choked by months of fear. "I have nowhere else to go," Caleb panted. "Victor knows I copied files. If they catch me, I'll disappear, like two colleagues before me." Amara glanced at Jonah and Miriam. They exchanged a quick look, then invited Caleb to sit. Zuri turned on a recorder, her voice even. "What proof do you have?" Caleb pulled out a small memory card wrapped in plastic. "It's all here. Illegal mining schematics, bribery records, buried toxicity reports. They've poisoned hundreds of families around the lithium mines. And if Haven's Crest falls, you're next." Amara gripped the coin in her pocket, a shiver running down her spine. Her grandfather had known, and now the truth was in her hands. The next morning, Caleb led Amara and Jonah to an old tunnel behind Haven Center. Its wooden door was moss-covered, hinges rusted, but inside was a hidden work of Elias Johnson's. Flashlights lit up wooden shelves lined with metal boxes. Jonah opened one. Inside were treasury bonds from the 1,940 seconds, still valid. Another held a crypto storage device, its small screen displaying a staggering sum, tens of millions of dollars. Amara froze. The entire tunnel was a financial vault, not just to sustain Haven's Crest, but to fight any force daring to destroy it. "My grandfather prepared for this war," Amara whispered. "He knew someone would try to swallow this land." Caleb nodded, handing over a stack of yellowed paper files. This is what he backed up from Pterodine's data vaults. This evidence could bring the corporation down. In the tunnel, flashlight beams cast their shadows on rough walls. Amara held the USB and memory card, her heart pounding like a war drum. The weight of family, community, and legacy now rested in her hands. Jonah placed a hand on her shoulder, voice firm. "We have weapons, but the enemy won't sit still. They'll hit back." Amara looked around the vault, seeing Elias's legacy not just money or files, but meticulous preparation for the next generation. She knew. She was no longer the defeated single mother left behind at the will reading. Now, she was the keeper of a fight bigger than herself. That afternoon, the community gathered in the hall. Amara placed the bonds, crypto drive, and Pterodine files on the long table. Eyes widened, mingling awe and hope. "We're not just surviving," Amara said, her voice ringing like a bell. "We have the power to stand up." Elias Johnson didn't build Haven's Crest to live in fear. He made it a torch to light the way for those trampled. Applause thundered, dispelling the gloom. But Zuri whispered, "We must be careful. If Pterodine knows we have this evidence, they'll be more reckless than ever." Amara nodded, her eyes blazing with resolve. She'd lost too much honor, family, years stolen. Now she had a chance to take it all back, not just for herself, but for those never protected. And as night fell, an anonymous letter slid under her door. "If you dare go public with the files, your children won't be safe. Choose wisely." On the court date, Atlanta's sky was leaden gray, mirroring the tension gripping Amara's heart. She stepped into the courtroom, no longer the lost woman mocked at the will reading. Today, she carried Haven's Crest, the truth about Pterodine, and the belief that her grandfather had chosen the right heir. Malik was already there, suit pristine, face taut. But as Amara passed, his eyes flickered not with pity, but with quiet recognition. Behind him, Victor sat, his gaze sharp, like a cornered beast. Amara's lawyer opened, voice echoing in the wide room. Your Honor, my client not only proves her ability to raise her children through love and emotional stability, she manages a sustainable community with transparent finances and holds critical evidence of criminal acts by Teradyne Corporation, run by her cousin, Victor Johnson. Murmurs rose. Amara gripped the USB tightly, as if holding Elias's soul. The lawyer projected images, the steel bar marked with Teradyne's logo, illegal mining maps, bribery records, and reports of illnesses in families poisoned by lithium mines. Victor shot up, voice growling, "This is slander!" But the judge's gavel silenced him. Amara stood, her voice calm but resolute. They can steal my honor, take my motherhood, but they can't steal the truth. I'm not fighting just for myself. I'm fighting for my 2 children and for every child growing up on this land. A heavy silence swept the room. Malik looked at Amara, his eyes faintly red. He stood slowly, voice low. I don't deny it, our kids need their mother, and they need a role model as brave as she is. I agreed to Amara having primary custody. The room buzzed. Amara turned, eyes wide with shock and emotion. The judge noted the agreement, and the final ruling was delivered. Amara Johnson won custody. A week later, Haven's Crest buzzed with the launch of Haven Trust, a community trust fund. People from neighboring states poured in, cameras rolled, reporters scribbled. Amara stood on a simple wooden platform, flanked by Miriam, Jonah, Caleb, and her 2 children holding her hands. My grandfather gave me a coin that seemed worthless, Amara said, her voice ringing like the afternoon Sunday. But from that dollar, we built a legacy. Haven Trust will replicate this model across the country, so every family has a place to call home, so every child grows up with hope. Applause erupted. Green flags with clasped hands fluttered in the breeze. Cameras panned to Amara's face, no longer the abandoned woman, but the leader of a new movement. In the crowd, Zuri whispered, "This isn't just a small community anymore. It's the start of a green revolution." Amara looked down at Elowin in Sauron's small hands, her heart swelling with simple joy. She'd lost everything, only to find more than she ever imagined. Haven's Crest shone like a torch in the dark. From a seemingly worthless coin, Amara rebuilt her honor, reclaimed her motherhood, and above all turned shame into strength to create a shared legacy for hundreds. Her story isn't just about wealth. It's proof that sometimes the smallest thing holds the greatest power, if we're brave enough to believe in it. $1 can become an entire world, with love, faith, and resolve. Yet, the darkness hasn't vanished. Teradyne lingers, quietly planning a more dangerous counterattack. And the final message on Amara's phone reminds us, this fight has only just begun. If you believe Haven's Crest will stand against any force, leave a comment below. What do you think Teradyne's next move will be? Share this video to spread the story, and join us for part 2.